Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. So Netflix is basically Santa this year. 2 NFL games on Christmas Day, streaming live. At 1 p.m. Eastern, it's Cowboys, Commanders. Then at 4:30, you've got Lions, Vikings. Midwest football, playoff stakes, and probably some snow. Watching holiday football is a tradition the whole family can enjoy. Open some gifts, grab some food, settle in, and watch NFL Live on Netflix this Christmas Day.
Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. So, are the strikes on the narco-terrorist drug boats correct military procedure, especially given they have been designated as members of a foreign terrorist organization? Well, here to discuss this and more is retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Blaine Holt. He is also a former C-17 combat commander, also former U.S. Deputy Military Representative to NATO. And General Holt, it's great to have you here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So are these strikes appropriate?
Well, I believe that they are there, and every strike they've done since. But this is just a tiny snippet of a much, much bigger war we're looking at. And you know, in Congress, the seditious six, they have looked for any possible thing that they can do to throw a rock at President Trump. But they're doing so at the expense of the unity of command, unity of effort with our forces when they're in combat operations. So this is it's really reprehensible. And the new news that there are anonymous Coast Guard sources coming out and challenging the validity of the strike. This strike's already been through congressional oversight and it's been explained, and the politicization is going to remain. So we have to, as a nation, get behind this effort because we're losing 100,000 Americans a year to fentanyl.
How do these things work? Kind of walk us through sort of the chain of command. And also in this particular case, we know that, you know, the Admiral, he had a JAG standing right next to him when he was making these decisions. Kind of give us a little sense of the protocol of how these things come about.
Exactly. And we went through all this all through the Global War on Terror, Operation Enduring Freedom. These rules of engagement are not new to us for surgical strikes. And so what has to happen first is you have to acquire your target. You have to confirm that target. That target gets confirmed by a targeting attorney, a lawyer that specializes in that. And in this case, since it had 4-star interest, it goes all the way up the chain to where that JAG is standing next to him and saying, I confirm that's a valid military target. And then once they're free to engage, they're engaging. And they can't know what the intent is of everybody on board. So they've got to make split-second decisions on what it is that they're going to do. And again, the politics are going to fly all over this, you know, and anytime you see the name Trump, just know that there'll be piranhas in the water and they're going after him. But we need him to be successful at this.
You brought up also sort of the Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, you go back and you look at a comment that Joe Biden made in 1989, and he sounds like he would hit every single boat and blow them out of the water.
Right.
And then you look at he also went in Afghanistan, as we know, and he took out that family. It was a guy who I think was bringing water, and he had kids with him,
right,
and took him out. And the family and young kids. And then how about Obama? He had a wedding in Afghanistan, which had men and women at that wedding.
Well, Obama also had 450 drone strikes under his belt over Pakistan. This is not a word was said, just not even whispers. And so the hypocrisy and the double standards are ridiculous. But what I hate to see, especially out of the seditious six, attempting to willfully sow discord in the ranks when we're in combat operations and undermining commanders. It's reprehensible.
You know, you go on the seditious six. Of course, you think of Marcus Kelly, Alyssa Slotkin. When you look at all of them, and then they come out with this statement and say it to everybody, you know, stand down, we'll have your back. What is that? That to me was shocking as a layman. You've spent so much of your life there in the military, General Holt. How shocking is it that somebody, especially in his case, of course, he's got military connections. He was there for so long in the military. And then she was with the CIA. For her and him, and for the other ones were, House representatives. But for them to all cohesively tell the military to defy the commander-in-chief?
You know, in my direct experience, I wasn't in Libya, I wasn't at Benghazi, but I certainly was at the European command post in Stuttgart. And in my experience managing that or the Crimea takeover with the so-called little green men, I can tell you I saw things that disgusted me out of civilian so-called leaders in our government, but I have never, ever seen something that rose to the level that these six have engaged in. They need to be investigated. We need to find out motivations and money next.
Do you believe that someone's paying them? I mean, you bring up money. It's an interesting point.
Well, here's why I think that it should at least be investigated. They do it all at the same time. The production value of the video is very high. Somebody paid for that stuff. Somebody came up with that implementer where they do that at the same time. They didn't just go to lunch as a six and go, you know what we ought to do? That's not how that happened. It's just the same way when you look at protests against the president for ICE enforcement identically happening in Los Angeles and New York, and they all have professionally printed signs. They all look exactly the same. They're all doing exactly the same thing at the exact same time. So is there a force behind all these things? Oh, I believe there is, absolutely.
Who do you believe is behind them, and who would want to sow that kind of discord and sort of almost commit treason, sedition? Is it an inside force or is it an outside force trying to sow discontent in the United States?
I think it's both, and I think it could have foreign fingers to it. And so what you have to look at is go back to what the president's doing here. He's hitting cartels. Cartels are connected to all the money laundering of the world. That involves private bankers, shadow bankers, politicians, paid off staffers, not just in our country, but around the world. You even have a foreign intel agency that's saying they're not going to share intel with us anymore. None of those things would happen if they weren't threatened or the supply chains of all this illicit activity and money wasn't under pressure. And the more pressure we see, the more we're going to see probably actions here at home, because the cartels are here, the terrorists are here for 4 years of open borders.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because you have to wonder how many of them are already in this country, potential sleeper cells. I mean, obviously, we saw what happened with that Afghan recently who came over and opened fire on the National Guard. Which is a separate issue of terrorism, obviously, but the cartels are infamous. How many do you believe are potentially in this country? And boy, I can't even imagine how many came in under Biden. And you're right, Trump is ruining their business model.
That's right. So there is a group of professionals that I talk to on my own. The best we can do is come up with a conservative estimate that there are over 10,000 cells in America comprised of terror groups, Hezbollah, Trinidad, Venezuelans, other groups, and then connected to state actors like the People's Liberation Army, Iran. They're all here, and they're on every main street in America. And so we've really got to be head on a swivel, come together as communities, and support our local first responders.
You know, as we're talking about also the war on terror, we know that President Trump designated the cartels specifically as foreign terrorist organizations. How important was that, General Holt?
It's very important because for the president to go do this, he is yanking on the bottom Jenga block of a tower of illegal activity that goes global. And so that means everybody's going to be trying to throw rocks at the president's plans. What this does is put an extra layer of legal protection around him as he tries to go get this stuff done.
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Lincoln Wishlist sales event is happening now. Here's what's on everyone's wish list. Enjoying holiday jingles with brilliant 3D audio that surrounds you? Check. Watching snow flurries through the panoramic Vista roof? Check. Packing up presents with the spacious Lincoln Splitgate? Check. Everything you want. All standard on the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV. Visit your local Lincoln retailer or learn more at Lincoln.com for exceptional offers on 2025 Lincoln vehicles today.
Yeah, that's a great point because it gives him sort of the backup. And now we're also hearing that people on this boat, this one that particularly seems to be in question by Democrats going back to, I think it's September 2nd, that we also are hearing that the people that were on the boat, all of them, were listed as sort of enemies of America, that they were known threats to America, that names were actually on a list. And they're like, okay, we have so-and-so on the boat. We have so-and-so on the boat. If indeed that's true, doesn't that even further help explain why they needed to be eradicated if they were already known threats to this country?
It absolutely does. And then what I would advise the president is you got to flip this now onto offense and go ask the seditious six what their intent was, investigate who these Coast Guard folks are who are saying they know better, even though they only have one piece of the puzzle. But we have to get the military back to good order and conduct and unified operations for the good of the country. And the American people are sick of this stuff. They politicize everything.
Yeah, how important is it, especially in the military, more than almost anywhere else? Chain of command, obeying orders, not putting any sort of personal spin on things. It really destroys the mission. Talk about how important it is to have a cohesive leadership chain from the top.
I can tell you firsthand in my own command experience that this is the difference between life and death and winning and losing. I was the commander of our base, a very big logistics base in Central Asia and Kyrgyzstan. And we had a violent, bloody massacre and revolution, and my folks were under attack. We had to put the country back together at the exact same time and service all the operations logistically in Afghanistan. And all of that could never have been possible if I couldn't tell my team, you're going to do this now, and they get it done within 1 minute. I went from zero. Within 15 minutes, I had that wing cocked and ready to go and to defend Americans from anything.
Yeah, and that's the important message, too. And let's go back also to the drug boats, because by Donald Trump taking the fight to the drug cartels and having that kind of clarity in leadership in crisis times, how important is that?
It's the number one military operation we've done in the last 40, 50 years, I believe. And again, the magnitude cannot be underestimated. So there is another general in this war. His name is Scott Bessent. All that intelligence we're delivering to him, he is looking at asset forfeitures, killing off illicit banking and supply chains and the funding of all this stuff. And I'll tell you, Rita, it's going to get a lot of people very angry from Beijing to Davos.
Yeah, that's a great point because there's so many layers on this chain. I mean, even from the China perspective, we know that they're bringing in some of the original ingredients are coming in from China there. They're making so much money. We heard from President Trump this week, too, where he was saying, General Holt, that because of these maritime strikes, obviously it's important to strike them out, but it also sends a message because he said that I think it's down 91% or some stunning amount. It was a huge amount that they have seen a reduction. And now suddenly, drug trafficking on the high seas, because guess what? They don't want to be the next target, right? I mean, even not just the action, but the message it sends is critical.
It's a great deterrent. And what happens next is they shut down the fentanyl labs. They try to go as cold as they can so we can't see them from space or our sensors. And here's the thing. This is what's beautiful. It's too late. We put the Navy out by the coastline, and then all the cartel leaders in Maduro and in Colombia freaked out. got on their phones, called everybody all over the world, and gave us all this intelligence about who the bad guys are, where the money is, and how things are all working, and where the labs are working. So next chapter, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, what do you think is the next chapter?
I think you're going to see some targeted strikes on fentanyl labs, the cartel bosses' assets, like the occasional super yacht, maybe a mansion or two. But what we're going to do is put a cost imposition on these folks, because every time you do that, they turn on each other. They turn on their globalist cohorts, and that's what we're after. We want to bring down the whole Jenga tower, not just this.
And how complex is that? I mean, to do an operation where it's some sort of strategical strike on whether it's a fentanyl lab or something like that, or one of the assets like you talked about, like a yacht, something that represents. And did you say that we got the information from where you believe we got that information on some of the intel?
Well, there's a thing called signals intelligence, and
hey, I think we've heard of that.
When they get all scared and they start screaming and yelling into their phones and computers, I can't tell you how. I just know that we're getting availed of that information. And how complex are these strikes? Let me remind you that one day off the Mogadishu coast, a Navy SEAL hanging from a rope on a helicopter going up and down used his sniper rifle and took out a bad guy in a boat and saved a couple. We're good at this stuff.
Yeah, we're very good. We're very good. Explain also why it's important. You know, some people say, well, why are they taking out these people? You know, we've heard the Democrats say, oh, it's so mean to do it to these nice, sweet narco-terrorists. They're even disputing the phrase narco-terrorist, Blaine.
I know.
So what do you say to those folks?
What I would say is that you're in the swamp and you're so horribly out of touch with the country. What you don't realize is that there is not a family now in America that is untouched by the overdose crisis. We have lost 1.5 million Americans since 1980, 500,000 in the last 5 years. And for those people who would defend that or get in the way of that, well, then I want to know why they're doing it and what their motivations are. But we, the people, versus you, the swamp, and I'm pointing at D.C., that's where we see the battle lines, not red versus blue. And
yet there are Democrats like, you know, Jim Himes, Democrat of Connecticut, who came out and he disputed the phrase, I brought this up before, the phrase narco-terrorist, saying that's not a good phrase. I mean, are you amazed that they're even disputing that? It seems like they're taking the side of drug dealers.
They are taking the side of drug dealers. It's the same thing as they did when we had 4 years of open borders. They're not illegal aliens. How dare you? That's bigoted. They're undocumented immigrants. And if they use language to their benefit, and it works up to a point, but then when the American people finally waking up, and that's what we're going through right now, they're like, I already know 50 people in my town who died on fentanyl. I want this. And if you go into Appalachia right now, you go find out how many Narcan dispensers there are on all the main streets. Well, they'll tell you who they support, and it's not Heinz.
What do you say to folks who come out and say, well, why didn't we arrest them, particularly the two survivors after the first strike? Why is that dangerous for the military? Because I understand that could be a dangerous proposition. Why does the military not feel that they need to even get them for arrest?
It's a great question. So the reason here is we have a very fast-moving campaign in progress, and you've got to look at it as a big picture. So with all of the intel gathering, all of the operations that they have going on, and a lot of these things are autonomous operations. We've got robots in play here. It's hit the enemy, strike the cost imposition, move on to the next thing. If there's survivors, we take the survivors, we see if there's any intel value. But I can tell you that they probably evaluated all the boat crews and found they'll have zero intelligence that we don't already know.
Is there also a chance, too, that it puts the military in danger? I mean, is that also part of it? Because if you start going in and taking them out, who knows who flies in or who knows who comes in with another strike?
That's a very good point. I mean, so let's say if we were going to go get two people floating in the water, the harmless, air quotes, fishermen, you come down, you have to come out of a helicopter, wait for the line to statically discharge into the water, While you're waiting on that, you could be shot by these two. And then you have to get in the water and you have to drop them a basket and rescue them out. And your life could be expired at any time. If they've got a knife, any kind of weapon, you are at extreme risk. So the commander's got to say, do I want to take that risk?
Yeah, and that's what I think is an interesting proposition because, like you said, maybe they don't even have any information we want. The other thing is it putting our troops at risk where it's much easier to do it from a distance and take them out and neutralize the threat than bring them on? What if they're packed with explosives? We don't know, right? You put them on a chopper, who knows what they're planning?
That's exactly right. And so what we have to assume is that you have a determined enemy. I mean, if they're not a determined enemy, with the USS Ford sitting right there in your face, and you still think you're going to give it a go on trying to move drugs across, that's a determined enemy.
Yeah, that is for sure. Now, what do you think is ahead for Maduro?
Well, that's an interesting thing because Maduro had a counterproposal to President Trump and said, I'll take $200 million and I get to bring 100 of my best friends out of here with me. That was all turned down from the White House. Maduro is in between the dog and the fire hydrant. He can't get out of this. So if he makes a move towards the door, somebody will put a bullet in his head. If he stays there, he's probably not going to survive it. And so what happens is, as we put these cost impositions on and they're watching their businesses, the cartel chiefs, fall apart, then what happens next is they all turn on each other. And that's why Cuba reached out to the president today to say, hey, we got to figure out a different way here because they're 100% dependent on the Venezuela economy and would go to immediate anarchy and chaos. And if Maduro's gone, there will be chaos. And then we'll probably have to help try put it all back together again with our partners down in the region. But this is how you get at your enemy with minimal loss of life.
Yeah, and send a clear and very loud message. You know, before I let you go, also, one of the powerful things that we heard was when Admiral Bradley said that, you know, he essentially took the strike. He also said that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth didn't issue any kill them all orders. And also when Pete Hegseth was asked during a White House cabinet meeting, you know, do you stand by Admiral Bradley's decision? And he said, yeah. He said, this is a very seasoned guy, lots of experience. And of course, I stand by his decision. How important is that clarity? And also to know from the highest levels that they have the Admiral's back. And the Admiral, so far, his story seems to be the same as Pete Hegseth's story.
It's critical. It's absolutely critical. It's a tenet of warfare that we call unity of command. And then that's why we take so much exception to the discord in the ranks being sown, because they're required to have unity of effort, following the good orders and discipline of the military. Anything else imperils our own forces.
Yeah, and that's the last thing that we can have happen, especially when you're dealing with these cartels. They are ruthless, right? I mean, you've seen the stories. I was just at an event the other day. John Katsimatidis and I, Blaine, were at an event where they talked about what happened to DEA agent Kiki Camarena, who was just horrifically tortured. And it took a long time to finally bring his killer to justice. But these people don't care. They don't even care if you're law enforcement. They will do anything, right?
Oh, they absolutely adore the violence. They're raised from a very early age that not only will you be paid to do this, but we want you to love your job. These are some of the most vicious people on the planet. And the disheartening thing is, after 4 years of the open border, they live amongst us, and they're ready for activation. And so we've got to be extremely careful and not take unnecessary risks in our communities. Yeah,
no, that's a great point. And obviously send a message to them that if they were to do anything, this is what's going to happen to them. And that's why those hitting at the boats and doing other things and the squeeze, like you talked about also from Secretary Bessent, the Treasury Secretary at the same time, is so important. Well, General Blaine Holt, thank you so much. And everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. And General Holt, this was really powerful and really informative. Thank you very much.
Always my pleasure, Rita. Thank you.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.
my word for it. I live there. Come to Florida. Get pre-approved right now with my guy Michael Cotzi. Call him at 561-441-2730. He's got Choice Mortgage and a great real estate team. Get pre-approved right now. Michael Cotzi, 561-441-2730. Buy in Florida right now. Don't wait. Save money on state taxes. Make your move today with Choice Mortgage. Trust me, Florida is waiting. This guy's so good, he did my commercials in Florida too. Mike Cotzi, 561-441-2730. A ride.